talk about what is the best death, because she's one of her professors who is not Orthodox, obviously, wants to know.
We are live.
Oh, Vibst.
No, that's okay. Oche, that's a good question.
Keep on going.
She wants to know, in the Orthodox faith, if there's such a thing as the best death possible. And I said, look, read the first few intonations that we have in the Služba Božja, that we are already talking about the heavenly, kingdom and our earthly kingdom, and that the best thing is to have peace in the world and peace amongst mankind, and get ready to have, our road to salvation is to work on it through mercy. And she goes, oh, so perhaps, Oche, I know that she's going to be watching that if we could spend not a long time, but this goes with Pomanina Subota, Zadushna Subota.
Absolutely.
Death and what is, of course, the most of terrible death that she is a young child. And I had the experience already 3 times, then for a young baby child, and then a 15-year-old boy, and it didn't matter. I know that it was devastating as a priest to visit with the family and try to bring comfort and consolation for the parents, but especially for the mother. But even though they were like 50 years old or whatever, but a mother should never have to experience that. Unfortunately, there will be those experiences. So how do you make this death something that would be a teaching tool, not only for you, but also for the family and then for the community?
I think it's a very valid question. Oche Ihora, as a professor of theology, I would ask you to answer that. But at this point of time, I just will ask if we can start with the prayer.
Sorry.
And then, of course, we'll right away divulge into that question. В ім'я Отця і Сина Святого Духа, амінь. Ім'я Отця і Сина Святого Духа, амінь. Ім'я Отця і Сина Святого Духа, амінь. Царю Небесний, утішителю душі істини, що всюди єси і все наповняєш, скарби, добра і життя подателю, прийди і вселися в нас, і очисти нас від усякої скверни, і спаси благі душі наші. Слава Отцю і Сину Святому Духу, нині повсякчас, на віки віків, амінь. Господи помилуй, Господи помилуй, Господи помилуй. Отче Ігоре, благослови.
З нами Бог своєю благодаттю, чоловіколюбством, завжди, нині, повсякчас і на віки віків. Амінь.
Амінь. So I'd like to welcome ім'я Отця і Сина Святого Духа, амінь. Ім'я Отця і Сина Святого Духа, амінь. Ім'я Отця і Сина Святого Духа, амінь. Слава Ісусу Христу.
Слава навіки.
So today is, again, as always, we are asking our viewers to let us know which language they prefer us to speak, either Ukrainian or English. And we'll continue our conversation today as Father Taras had asked to talk about. Oche Tarasa, can you just repeat your question, please?
Yeah, to keep питання, there's questions. A good question by a university student who is doing an essay on death and our perspective on death, especially from the Orthodox faith, from the Orthodox Church. And she asked me, her professor wants to know, or wants them to write on, what is a good death? What is the best death that we could have? And so she's writing it from an Orthodox perspective, and also from a Jewish, a Hebrew perspective. Vini Anash, he's a Mennonite background. And I said to her, I says, well, you have to understand that we, of course, are very biblical in our teachings. And I said that, in the first 3 intonations of the Divine Liturgy, we have the Church Militant, of course, and then the Church, the Heavenly Church, where we say, blessed is the kingdom, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then the first few intonations, of course, in peace, let us pray to the Lord, in the peace and our salvation that we start to work on, our mercy that we're working on, and then even in the first 2 intonations of the Pomana, the Panacheda that we intone, is that every death, it doesn't matter whether it's tragic or whether it is, blessed, or good, there is something that we can glean from it. And she goes, she also wanted to know how we can, as a community, help people out. And that's when I started telling her about the fact, that all deaths are important in our lives. We can all experience death in many different ways, especially when it is a child or when it is a young person, as compared to when it is an older one. But I said, and this is what she found very interesting, that I said that it is very difficult. The worst, if there is a terrible death or a worse death, it is when a mother experiences the death of her child or of a young person, a young child, but a baby in her. And she goes, "Oh, why?" This is because she carried that person for 8 years or for 9 months, and this child knows her heart. It feels her soul, and the mother has that, also that contact, and it's a special contact between a mother and a child, right? And a father and a child can have that contact too, but it's not like a mother and a child. And she goes, "Well," she says, "this is," and then I invited her to have an opportunity to listen to us tonight, if we had an opportunity to speak, and it's nice that we will, about this. And she could also glean from some of the teachings that we can speak about tonight on, the death, that the most important thing for us is always to prepare. Not that a death is good, but, a good preparation for our death, whether it's we're preparing every day of our life, every week, every month, every year, or if we were so inclined to be a person who maybe was not that religious or faithful, even in the last week. And I'm sure that our fellow priests have had an opportunity when visiting in a hospital, when someone looks at an older person will look at you and say, "Ocha, I'm ready. Let's have the anointing. Let's have the prayers. I'm ready to go." And it's like, wow, there's lots to be learned from this person on them just giving themselves to our Heavenly Father.
Well, Oche Ihara, how would you take that question?
Well, I make a few comments. When you talk about how difficult it is for a mother to experience the death of her child, we do remember that Jesus' mother, Mary, experienced it very painfully. And in our crucifixes, very often, if in an icon of the crucifixion, you will always see Mary beside the cross, right? And we remember that in the Gospel of Luke, it was prophesied to her that a sword would pierce her soul, which means that she would have experienced this terrible rending experience of seeing her beloved son was completely, totally compassionate and good and merciful, and no evil could be attributed to him at all. Seeing him die in such a very painful and ignominious way, crucified between two thieves, as though he himself had been a thief. It was really, really horrible. And that is expressed by the song that we often sing at Lent, Skarbna Yamate, the sorrowful mother, standing beside the cross. But the interesting thing is that as that song, Skarbna Yamate, as it ends, the very last words that Mary speaks in that song is, to you, O Father, I hand over my beloved Son. So in a way, the sacrifice that Jesus is making upon the cross, his mother, Mary, is also making that sacrifice, offering Jesus to the Father, and also on behalf of the entire human race. So there's that. The other thing that one should know is that we believe that the church teaches that death really should not have been in the picture at all. Death is not something that we say we welcome it. It's great. Death, it's a friend. It can be when there has been suffering and so on. It can be a relief. But death is always a tragedy. Death always separates people, breaks down a unity of between friends and family and so on. So it is death is never seen as a good thing. Death is an evil thing, right? And it comes, but the reason it comes in is because of the fact that human beings have the freedom to choose to choose obedience or disobedience, and our ancestors chose disobedience, and so they passed on that death to all the human race. So all the human race dies. But then that death also then becomes an amazing opportunity for God to show his amazing, absolutely amazing love for humanity, in that he doesn't cancel out death, but he himself, in the person of God the Son, the second person of the Trinity. Just 1 second. Слава, я тобі передзвоню, я є на інтернеті, зараз розмову маю. Буде, я через годину позвоню, добре? Прошу? Окей, добре, добре. Okay, bye. Yes, my neighbor is calling me. So, so he himself goes on and takes that death upon himself. He dies upon the cross and unites himself to us in our death. Now, this is amazing that God Himself would come and join us, having no fault at all. And that's what we believe is happening when Jesus dies on the cross. So He gives him this wonderful, amazing opportunity to show love for us, and then ultimately we believe that when he dies upon the cross, death has lost its power over the human race. Doesn't mean that we don't die, we still do die, but it means that death is not going to be able to hold us, because just as Jesus rose from the dead, we too, each and every one of us, will rise as well. So it is an evil, a terrible tragedy, a horrible thing, and yet God, in His love and mercy, still brings the greatest victory, the greatest joy, the greatest expression of love out of that. We would not have seen that if we had not been subject to the power of death.
Absolutely.
And all our life, what we are doing is fighting against that death by being faithful, by being kind, by caring for people, and so on. And finally, when the time comes that we do have to pass away, well, as we say in the litany, a Christian ending to our life, painless, blameless, and peaceful, and a good defense before the dread judgment seat of Christ. This is what we look for. And actually, how it will happen, well, that is a bit of a complex thing. It's something that relates to us. It's how we live our life. It's how the society, the world around us, is living its life, and also how God is permitting it to happen. So there is this complex of things working together to say how that death will be. But the main thing that we need to do is, of course, keep on putting our trust in the Lord, hoping in Him, helping other people, and so on. And eventually, when that death comes, it, instead of being a terrible, as terrible and horrible as it could be, it becomes much less so.
If I could just push you, or not gently nudge you into then how, it's obvious that it's very important that this first part of the discussion leads us into why we believe, or why it's important for us to have a Zadushny Suboty, Memorial Saturdays, just for this reason, because it's not that we don't respect, but we know that with our death and with the death of our family members, that there is still hope. And this is why we gather on Zadushny Suboty to pray for their souls, that the Lord still be merciful to them and to us, to learn how to cope with it.
The thing is, as long as we remember them, even in that way, they're not really completely dead, because they have not completely disappeared, because we remember them. And of course, the way we pray for them is, Lord, remember your servant, right? Right? Remember your servant. So this act of remembering is our proclamation of triumph over death.
It's also worth
I'm
mentioning.
just going to step away for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So I'll just put that's Ihor's screen off, and just wanted to let you know that it is also worth mentioning that what we understand as death in our understanding as Orthodox Christians. But that's Ihor is back, so I'll just put him back there. But I do believe also that in our understanding as Eastern Christians or Orthodox Christians, we believe that death is mercy, right? Death is mercy as well, because could you imagine us living and being immortal as we were created to be immortal in God, right? But because of the sin came corruption, right? And our body became corrupt as a consequence of making wrong choices. And because of that, the older age, all the illnesses and stuff like that. So could you imagine if God would not permit the death to come into this world, what would have happened here? Like it's an unimaginable picture. So for
Yes.
us, death, especially when it comes perhaps older age or any age for that matter, no, it's older age, is that death is a mercy. I do believe also that death is a huge tragedy when you lose somebody, especially at the younger age, and it impacts so dramatically, so devastatingly of somebody who had passed away in younger people, and we just had on the Facebook page, some of my friends, had posted their son passed away in the Lord a couple of years ago, Vasilko Shavchuk,
Oh yeah.
he probably so again, like it's a devastating thing, like when you lose a child, especially younger man, like in university age, it's any child of any age for that matter, it's devastating. So our condolences, of course, to the family or to the families that lost somebody. But again, like it's really hard to kind of come out of it because loss, seems like almost like a natural order of things taking place. Like normally, like it's older first the generation of parents come and then the generation of kids. Here it almost comes the reverse order, and we quite often ask at that point of time the question: so um, why do bad things happen to good? Like, why do those things happen to us? Right? We're trying to justify or rationalize or answer the question, and we quite often look for who we need to blame in that situation too. And I do believe that one of those best books, and we had talked about this before, right? One of the best books that you can read is about this is, of course, as When Bad Things Happen to Good People. It's written by Rabbi Harold Kushner, right? And he has some really nice quotations about on this topic, and that is I just wanted to read, with your permission, of course, I would like to read one of them.
Of course.
This is Rabbi Kushner.
Yeah, Kushner.
Kushner.
E.R.
ER, yes.
So he has he has like a really good quotes, but and he one of the quotes is that he says, for many of us we will come to the point where death will be the only healer for the pain which our lives will have come to contain. It's very kind of interesting thing, and repeats the thought that death is mercy, especially when it comes to older age, when there's sickness and pain are befalling us. When we talk about somebody who passes away of the younger age, he says, um, he says right here, we cannot merely pray to God, O God, to end war. For we know that you have made the world in the way that man must find his own path to peace, within himself and within his neighbor. We cannot merely pray to God, O God, to end starvation, for He has already given us the resources with which to feed the entire world if we would only use them wisely. We cannot merely pray to God, to you, O God, to root out prejudice, for you have already given us eyes with which to see the good in all men, if we would only use them rightly and choose to do so. If we would only use them, we cannot merely pray to you, O God, to end despair, for you have already given us the power to clear away slums and to give hope if we would only use our power justly. We cannot merely pray to you, O God, to end disease, for you have already given us great minds with which to search our cures and healing, if we would only use them constructively. Therefore, we pray to you, O God, instead for strength, determination, willpower to do instead of just to pray to become instead of just to pray to become instead of merely to wish, and so on and so forth. So he basically talks about in this quote about the fact that we cannot well, we can choose to blame God for our pains and sorrows and suffering, but the whole thing is that it will not help us much. In his quotation, he says that uh, we can ask God to help us and guide us through the way of dealing with the pain. That's just my take of that entire book. That's you probably have read it before too, and can find it.
I
Can find
regret that I
something.
have it. That's one of the books that I should read. I want to read. I have the book in my library, but I have not read it. But I'm
Okay.
also thinking at this point, there is this beautiful prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, where the prayer says, O Lord, make me the channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring your love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And where there's doubt, true faith in you. So, in other words, what we're praying for is that we can be the instruments by which God will bless the world. And the beautiful thing is that as we become those instruments, we ourselves experience the blessing, because the blessing passes through us. And when it passes through us, it cannot but also leave traces of blessing for us too. So this is what God in his wisdom has done. He has given each and every one of us the opportunity, the possibility of being a blessing to other people. So what we really ought to be praying for is so that we could be doing that, as that prayer of Saint Francis of Assisi says.
The quote that I really wanted to do is to quote him as on it's a couple pages before the last page, and it says that in the final analysis, the question of why bad things happen to good people translates itself into some very different questions. No longer asking why something happened, because there is really no answer to that. Like we don't really wisdom of what stands behind and stuff like that. We don't know. You know, no longer asking why something happened, but asking how we will respond, what we intend to do now that it had happened to us. Are you capable of forgiving and accepting in love a world which has disappointed you by not being perfect? A world in which there is so much unfairness and cruelty, disease and crime, earthquake and accident and death. Can you forgive its imperfections and love it because it is capable of containing great beauty and goodness, and because it is only world will have? Are you capable of forgiving and loving the people around you, even if they have hurt you and let you down of not being perfect? Can you forgive them and love them because there aren't any perfect people around, and because the penalty for not being able to love imperfect people is condemning oneself to loneliness? Are you capable of forgiving and loving God, even when you have found out that He is not perfect, even when He has let you down, and disappointed you by permitting bad luck and sickness, death, cruelty in this world, and permitting some of those things to happen to you? Can you learn to love and forgive him despite his limitations, as Job does, and as you once learned to forgive and love your parents, even though they were not as wise, as strong, or as perfect as you needed them to be? And if you can do these things, will you be able to recognize that the ability to forgive and the ability to love are the weapons God has given us to enable us to love, to live fully, bravely, and meaningfully in this less than perfect world? It is a phenomenal quote, like it's just
Yes.
about forgiveness and love, and also it as he refers here, it's forgiveness and love also refers to God Himself, because we don't understand why bad things happen. We don't understand but what made it happen. Like what really terrible things happen in life. But if God gives us strength to deal with that, that's a encouraging gift. I don't know, Dr. Tarasa, if I had how do you say muddied the water more, or answered your
No,
question.
no, I don't think so. I think it's good to have this. I think this refreshing understanding of the importance of Zadushna Subota for, especially for our younger adults, and for everybody. And I think it's always important for us to revisit, because we should never take for granted, and that everybody is an outstanding Orthodox citizen. Everybody always needs to have um, a refresher course once in a while, and I know that Father Ihor would not think of this any other way. Otherwise, he wouldn't be a professor.
Yeah. So it's a very delicate and interesting topic, and I think that forgiveness itself is a long road to hoe kind of thing, and it takes a long time to heal and to accept things, and it's sometimes we want to give up about this too, but yet we need to kind of keep pursuing and hopefully attain that gift that God gives us. um, let's see, if you wanted to continue on this conversation topic, we are actually asking, if anybody would like to ask questions, please type them in, and we'll be more than happy to answer them. But at this point of time, so far we do not have those questions. So I'd like us to kind of go
We
into
just
a
have
bit.
expressions of appreciation.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I just wanted to say that what's really interesting is that yeah,
Uh-oh,
I'm not I'm not gonna. Sorry.
your picture froze. The screen
Okay.
froze.
It happens. It happens.
Now it's okay.
Well, it froze because of, again, as you know, in Ottawa, in Ontario, we have implemented quarantine for next 4 weeks. So it means that Pascha again this year will not be celebrated
So are
by
you
a
in
full
lockdown?
community. It's going to be a quarantine. We have a lockdown. Yeah, basically. So um, it's unfortunate, and I think lots of people are going online um, at this point of time because there's something that we need to do. I
Yes.
uh, I just wanted to add that normally, under normal circumstances, at this point of time, we would have every Sunday a Pasia services, right?
Yes.
In our church, and that's where what that Ihor had been quoted, that song "Skordnaya mate pід Христом стояла," that we sing at the end of each Pasia. And in Ottawa, for many years, actually, excluding last year and this year, of course, in Ottawa, we have a tradition of hosting the Pasia. But in the same time, we also host the gathering of Orthodox parishes, like for Orthodox Sunday Vespers. But instead of Sunday Vespers, we sing Pasia service. And at that Pasia service, after that, we always have propagate in the church and propagate in the parish hall, and it was a very wonderful experience. come and experience the beauty of that service of a Passia service. Ocho, you want to kind of touch base upon that service and the history of the service, if you have a chance to?
Okay, yeah, the Passia, the service of Passia was something that was put together in the time of Metropolitan Petromohela in the 17th century, when Ukraine was going through a very difficult time because it was being occupied by Poland, and there was an attempt to forcefully um, stop the Orthodox Church, because the idea was that the true church has to be under the Pope of Rome. So there was that effort. So there was that happening. There were other difficult things that were happening. So Metropolitan Petromohila decided to make a special kind of service during the time of Great Lent, which would put together both portions from the services talking about the Lord's suffering, and especially the reading of the Gospels of the Lord's suffering, and together with something from the resurrection, the celebration of resurrection. So it was a kind of a bringing hope to the people, recognizing the suffering that people are going through, and at the same time pointing them to the hope which is in God. So these services are very beautiful. We particularly here in Canada have taken them on, and actually, I believe it was Metropolitan Larion of blessed memory that published it, and really encouraged that these things should happen in the parishes. And so it is common even in the West, where there's whole groups of parishes that are served by one clergyman, and they have Missinio Cruce, and they get together on Sundays, Sunday evenings usually. So it could be Saturday, it could be Friday, to celebrate this Passia service and to have some spiritual talks by the clergy or other people. And we have been doing that here in Montreal for decades, and it's really too bad that we are not able to do it this year.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't think we did it last year either, or maybe we did one or two last year.
We didn't do Passia last year.
We didn't. Okay, there you go.
No,
So
for
last
us,
year,
Posse, that's when it just started COVID, so everything got canceled that day.
so we had actually scheduled, because in our parish in Ottawa, it was Passia and Vespers Orthodox, not Orthodox Sunday, but Sunday after second Sunday of Lent. So it was a Sunday of St. Gregory Palamas. On the evening, where we scheduled to have a Passia service and invite all other Orthodox churches. And that was exactly on my birthday, on March 22nd, that we kind of had to shut it down. And we weren't able to have that service, and it's unfortunate, but we're looking forward to it. Actually, because of that format of the service, because we invited every Orthodox, for our sisters and brothers from different Orthodox churches in Ottawa, our service is attendance for Passia. We had over 150 people. Like last time that we had served it 2 years ago, we had over 150 people, and people, of course, enjoy the format because we had a nice reception after that, And then, but before that, Father Volodymyr Kushnir normally says homily in the church, right, or one of the clergymen, and then Otec Ihor is having dopoved, or conversation, or spiritual conversation, and it's just wonderful. And many weeks after that, we have people asking, "Oh, I'm looking forward to coming next year because it's a good format. We have a good, nice Lenten meal, and a nice, really nice conversation." So that's how it is. I just wanted to add to this that when you look at the structure of Passia, it's very, as has been pointed before, it's put together from the singing of Passion Week mainly, right?
Yes.
Holy Friday, Holy Saturday, Holy Thursday, all of those, prayers are combined together, and then the last kneeling prayer is prayer put together by Saint Petro Mohila. It was a response. I do believe, or read somewhere, that it is a response. It was a response of the Orthodox Church to the very popular at that point of time service of Stations of the Cross.
Hmm.
That was in the West. The Stations of the Cross. So it was an Orthodox response to that, for that matter. And it was a wonderful response, because Stations of the Cross had been created as a different, unique service. Here it's not a unique service; it's rather a service of abstracts from different Orthodox services of the Passion Week. That does show also that suffering of Christ. How he fall for us, how he became a how do you say it? How he had came to this world and had been crucified, and so on. And we read two chapters of each gospel for every time that we serve Pasi. So it's a wonderful, wonderful experience if you were to experience that service yourself. So that's what I wanted to add about Passia service. I also wanted to ask people if there's any who would like to ask question, please do so. But if not, we can move on and talk about something different. It's too bad that Volodymyr is not here, because he
Yes,
always
he's
has
always
this.
very interesting,
He's
very
always has,
interesting, and very cheerful.
and no, very, very passionate about something, right? So
Yes.
he had really good talks about this with him. So I do not know, fathers, if you had a chance to read Father Cyril Hovorun's article that says церква повинна наповнити публічний простір не лише бризками води, але сенсами. I don't know. Have you read that article or not? I think you sent you Ochi Ihora.
I have read it. Yes, I
What's your
have.
opinion of that article?
I like it very much. I like it very much. He's asking, he's calling upon us to get involved in the life of the community, to not just offer services closed in the temple, but to actually get involved in what's going on out there, and bring the, well, in a sense, it's something like in the Western Church they would have the social gospel, right?
Mm-hmm.
The gospel means that because Jesus preaches the gospel, it's not enough just to make a personal confession of faith and pray privately and so on. It should be something that changes the way we relate to other people and the way we relate to our society. Because in the society there are many injustices, many cruel things that are happening, and we as Christians are called upon to bring the message of Christ in a practical way to the to our society, take part in what's going on.
Mm-hmm. I found it to be a very interesting article too. It's not translated into English. It's published in the RISU, Релігійна інформаційна служба України, and you can find it by Father Kirill Havorun. But it's again, he raises the topic of where in traditional Ukrainian society, or for that matter, perhaps even traditional Orthodox milieu, doesn't touch it very frequently or very often, And as I think it's Father John Bear who had said that Orthodox, no, it's Father Florovsky that said that Orthodoxy is the best hidden secret in North America, kind of thing.
Father Florovsky, yes.
And it is true, because quite often we are associated or affiliated with just Ukrainian or just Russian or just Bulgarians and stuff like that, and we are
Greeks.
or Greeks, or Romanians, any ethnical part, and we are perceived or seen as very closed in groups, versus outreaching, and welcoming and so on and so forth. So almost like a I don't know if it's the right term to say it, but almost like a small ghetto of some people, that we don't let any outsiders in. And I do believe that it would be a question to any church or any parish in particular, or church in general, of any jurisdiction, is to ask the question, what do we want to do? Like, how do we want to proceed from now? Because it's a matter of fact that we live in North American society, we live in Canada, we have our kids who sometimes get married not to Ukrainians or not to Orthodox for that matter, you know. So where do we go from here? Like, so do we still close? Do we still kind of close our eyes to the fact that the changes need to be made, or to accept or changes and or to others, and also accept that something society has to offer too, because society has some good things to offer as well. I don't know what what's your take on that?
I missed that last part because you froze up.
Oh, that's just what's your take on that? Well, you also tell me that I froze up.
I would comment by saying that, I don't know, maybe some 10 years ago, I may have mentioned this before, I'm probably getting boring already to people, that here in Quebec, the government of Quebec decided that they wanted to implement secularism. That people should not be advertising their denominational adherence in public. That should be kept private. That should be kept in the churches, in the mosques, in the synagogues, in the homes, but don't bring it out into the public square, right? And I was deeply troubled by that, and I decided that from that point on, I decided that whenever I go out onto the street, to the store, wherever I go, I am going to wear my cassock and my cross. And it has often happened. It used to happen often, not terribly often, but from time to time, people would stop me and say, "Hey, you're not supposed to be walking like that. You're not supposed to be wearing that in public." And I would say, "Well, it's just me. That's who I am, and I'm happy to 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 express who I am. Why should I hide who I am? I am this." And but what I have noticed recently, I would say the past year, I noticed that that reaction is no longer there. I noticed that maybe it's because of the pandemic, that I noticed that people seem to be happy to see me walking that way. People seem to be friendly. Sometimes they greet me. By the way, I also try to greet them too. If I'm walking past somebody, I will say bonjour or hello. And if they happen to be wearing distinctive garb, which still does happen, especially here in Park Extension where I live, it's still not unusual to see Muslims walking dressed in their particular way, especially Hindus and especially Sikhs. So what I have learned to do is how to greet them in their way. So to the Muslim, I will say Assalamu alaikum, which is peace be with you. To the Jew, I will say Shalom. To the Sikh, I will say Sat Sri Akal. To the Hindu, I will say Namaste. And I really feel very happy to be doing that, and I think it's a good thing to do, to be showing, participating in our society as people of faith, as people of a specific community, and doing it not in any way to intimidate people, but to say that, look, I'm your neighbor, you're my neighbor. Let's be friendly to each other. Let's respect each other, and so on. Mm-hmm. At any rate, I believe it was a very good decision, and I do not regret it at all. And of course, it also saves a lot of money too, because I don't have to be buying new suits and things like that. I can just wear my same old cassock that I have been wearing now for about 15 years. and the fact that it's getting a little threadbare in places, actually, that's not so bad, because people also have this impression that priests must be making loads of money, so they should see a little bit of threadbare priest. That actually, it's not bad to see that.
Now that I know what we're talking about, we had an interesting discussion with our daughter Tatiana and her husband Roman just this last weekend. Bishop Tikhon of blessed memory, who was in the Winnipeg and Dauphin, and a bit of a mentor of mine, took me aside early on when he was here in Canada, and he says, "Naishosenku, ty Shishanka było dobrze, żeby ty odjechał się zawsze tak jak chrześcijanek." Like according to what, along the lines of Otec Dr. Ihor. And from that time, I've worn my cassock in public pretty much all the time, especially in the hospitals, nursing homes. That's my ID card, and no one ever asks me, "Can I see your ID?" Because now they've gotten to know who I am, and it's, oh yeah, it's Father Tras is the Orthodox priest, and I will have people from, like Father Ihor, from various backgrounds coming up to me just out of the blue and say, "Father, give me a blessing." And I think what it is, the good part about it is that by showing the people that we are not that we're not afraid to not only dress the part but be the part as a priest and act like a priest in public, I think what it does, there is that respect that we show people, and then there's a respect that we in turn receive, and it makes a living, especially in and around the church community where the churches are, much more enjoyable, because everybody will come up and say, "Hi, Father, how are you doing today?" Or even in the grocery store, it's with this new immigration that we've had over the last 15 years. Oh, I've been called Otec, I've been called Batushka, I've been called Pan Otec, I've been called Pan Peep. It depends which part of Ukraine or from Europe that they were from. And by doing that, I think that we have this respect that we have to give. As the old saying goes, if you want respect, you have to give respect first and foremost.
Yes.
And what it also does then, it also gives the opportunity for people from all walks of life to come up and say hello. It doesn't matter who they are, it doesn't matter what their religious background is. Even if they aren't religious, they'll nod their head or, say hello or wink their eye or whatever. And I think that's good in today's society, that people aren't scared to acknowledge that, not that you're different, but that you are also not scared to be, that you're not scared to show that you are a Christian.
You're taking a stand.
Yeah.
You're taking a stand. You don't want to be just a face in the crowd. You want to be distinctive. You're not showing off, but hey, this is who I am.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. That would be the way to describe it, Oche. Then having said that, there's lots of different people from different backgrounds who then will come to church and say, "Hey, Father, do you mind if I come in and pray?" Sure, why not? That's what the church is there for. And I think when we can open our doors a little bit more, and I grew up, and I know that Otec Ihor Mulade is sort of the same vintage I am, a little bit younger, but Otec Ihor is probably the most knowledgeable and the most respectful in age here. But I grew up that you never said very much in the church. You never talked with the priest because we were scared of him. Ми боялися того священника, що там, а ще до того, як він був ще бородатий, бо щось таке, і він його проповіді, 35 хвилин, 40 хвилин, і Боже сохрани, якби ти там трохи позівався, because he'd pick you out in the crowd. And I said I was never, when I became a priest, I said I would never be like that. Not where the kids are scared, or the youth are scared to come to church. Because, and it wasn't that far off, because the twice that we went, 2 times we went to Ukraine, it was in the first time we went in 2003. Це було катедрі в Буковині, і там я бачив, як ті батюшки давали сповідь. And I mean, I swear the girl was no more than 14, 15, 16 years old, and he's yelling at her for 15 minutes, and I'm going, oh, man, I wanted to go up and save that girl. That's not, I don't think, the way to draw people into the church by scolding or yelling or whatever. That's, in today's society, it's not going to work anyways. Not in North American
No.
society.
I don't think it ever really worked. All it did was alienated people from the church.
Perhaps, yeah.
And
One
I think
has
that's
to be sensitive. One has to listen. One has to care and remember that we are like they are. Would we like to have somebody yelling and scolding us? Does it make us feel comfortable? Does it make us feel closer to them or closer to the church? It
No.
doesn't.
I think that's part of the thing that Father Cyril Hovorun is talking about in his article, right? You know, is and I believe it's very universal. You know, so um, it's condemning that medieval mindset of unsurpassed authority that exists in the church at some point of time when it was part of the Tsarist or Byzantine Empire type of uh, you know attribution when
Look,
somebody go ahead.
look at Jesus when Jesus was taken and arrested. Did he say, "How dare you? I'm the Son of God. How dare you treat me this way? Do you know God the Father is going to punish you?" Uh,
But he
on the
did show
contrary,
his
his
human
Father,
side.
forgive them. They don't know what they're doing.
He did show his
That's right.
human side when he threw the thieves out of the temple.
Yes,
Yeah.
But that is a very
the
good
money
point.
changers.
That is a very good point, Ocha, because if this is what Otetz Haivoran is trying to
Hovorun, not
or
Haivorun.
Havrun trying to get across in his article, that there are better ways for us to um, mentor as clergy. And I don't know if he was just talking about the priesthood, or if he's talking about the bishops also, or the entire clerical order. But I think it's good for all of us to have a reminder like that once in a while to humble ourselves.
Absolutely. I think that that article. Well,
Ah,
when I was talking to Father Cyril many weeks ago, we talked in part about the document that had been developed at the Ukrainian Catholic Church in Ukraine, and that's the document. It's the doctrine, basically, not doctrine, but their vision or missionary statement of the church. And it's called "Жива церква є місце зустрічі живого Христа."
that's it.
So living parish is a place of meeting of living Christ. and and their mission is like the family, focusing on the family, building up their own faith, educating yourself. And one of those, I think there's 4 pillars, and I forgot about this already at this point of time, but one of the people who comprised that program was Father Onofarko. I don't know
I know
if you
him. Yeah,
ever Father Onofarko was teaching used to teach at the University of St. Paul. So he was one of those people who put that program together. It was a blessing of the Ukrainian Catholic Council of Ukrainian Catholic Bishops. And what is very pivotal and important is that they are, as Father Yor says, that they are talking about the social gospel. They're talking about that you need to do the mercy to others. They need to step outside of the temple of the church and reach into the community. Do what Jesus did.
yeah.
Step out of
Okay,
the comfort zone.
but we still have to remember, and this could be another topic for another time. I think we still have to remember that it's still important for us to maintain that discipline and that order as priests, in the church. we can't let the church in today's society. There's many different kinds of requests. I'm sure that every clergy will come upon that may seem щось там не смакує добре. You have to still maintain that order and the discipline within the church life. Reasonably.
Well,
Not I'm not saying militantly, but reasonably.
well, it's interesting.
He's laughing already.
Militantly is interesting thing because we're talking about us in this church as the church militant, right?
Yes.
And church triumphant is the one in half. So, Ochi, you kind of taking a silent position on that aspect. What would you say here as a professor of theology?
With regard to what?
With regard to the social mission of the church,
Oh,
being participants in
I think I raised that issue. The social gospel, the social
Yes,
mission of the church is to be participating in these things. I think it's also a good idea for us to keep in touch with our public servants, to write letters, to the papers, to take part in the radio talk shows and so on. We can't just keep it to our own homes and even to our own little communities. We have to be active socially in the community. We have to be a force for good, for peace, for harmony, for justice, for kindness, for acceptance in the communities in which we live.
Absolutely. Well, part of our, as you were saying, social gospel. That's a very nice expression.
Oh, I didn't think it up. That was something that was a big thing in the last century in the United States. There's a number of folks that wrote on that. Of course, it was primarily Protestants, but just because it was Protestants doesn't mean that it doesn't make sense or that it's not good.
Yeah. No. There's some really good Protestant literature that we can quote to relate to the problems that exist in their parishes as in ours. By the way, many years ago, I was a chair of rural issues committee in our church when I was serving in the consistory, and when we were talking about the commission of the parishes, one of the parish members, Slavko Demchinsky, had put together a really wonderful research in a document about the commission of the churches in Ukrainian Orthodox Church, because there is some some places that need to be decommissioned because there's nobody living there, and the buildings get decapitated and stuff like that. But I found a very how would you say, very interesting magazine. It's online. It used to be online, and that is the magazine is the called Rural Missions. I believe it's Rural Missions. Again, I haven't looked at it for a very long time, probably already 10, 15 years from now. But they were fantastic in their materials, and they're saying that the most neglected mission field in the world is rural North America. They had come up with that statement, and of course it was a Protestant magazine and Protestant church, and they were. What really kind of pleasantly impressed me is that they were making connections between the city parishes and rural parishes, and that mega church in Roblin, Manitoba, Ochetrasa, you probably know that, the big Baptist church. So was one of the product and successes of that rural missions, because the seed money had been collected by the larger parishes. The seed had been implanted, and now they have a very thriving Baptist community. But it talked about more than
Excuse
just.
me.
Oh, Отче на здоров'я. Hopefully, it's not
Дякую.
nothing to do with this disease right now, but it was such a wonderful eye opener that saying that priests or ministers who are serving in the rural parishes, in rural communities, need to be equipped to deal with issues that people of those community face, right?
Yes.
So some talks about suicide, hardship, overcoming hardship, building resiliency, building faith to give the resiliency to people. All of this had been outlined there, and somehow it didn't come to any fruition at that point of time. But we also had connected with the University of Brandon Masters in Rural Development. I think that was a program. They have a Masters in Rural Development, and one of your former parish members, Oche Tarasa, was a Charlene Gulak. I don't know if
Oh, Gulak,
remember
yeah.
her. So from Gilbert Plains, so she finished that program, and again, there are resources. There are people that are willing to partner up with us, to kind of work, especially in rural parishes. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because it was one of as we started talking about social gospel, it was one of the wonderful examples, how how we can benefit from the resources available in the community and developed by other churches to put it into our church to kind of strengthen the church and build it up. So unfortunately, never went past research at that point of time. There was more pertinent and important issues the church had to deal with, but hopefully maybe we can revive it at some point of time. But anyways, I see that we come to an end of our conversation. I'm just asking if people have any questions, please do ask at this point of time. No? I
They
guess
can even email you later and send them to us if you want.
absolutely.
And we can bring it up next time.
That's
There is
Yep.
Oche Ihore and Oche Doctor. There are quite a few people now in our community here in Saskatoon who do watch. In fact, I had Pomana this morning for a family, and they said, we watch faithfully now. So there is quite a large gathering here in Saskatchewan that watch the program. They may not say hello on the sidebar, but they will call me afterwards, and they really enjoy. They really enjoy the fact that it seems that we have an opportunity to have some enlightening discussions which have touched the lives of many faithful. So I think that this is fantastic work, and I'm sure that that's Hovorun would be impressed.
Well, we're not doing it to impress anybody. Rather, we kind of offering conversation that hopefully would be of interest to other people, bringing some educational component to it, and educating ourselves. So it's kind of
Yes.
a wonderful opportunity too. I just wanted to
Fellowship.
say fellowship. That's right.
The fellowship of the gospel.
Of the fellowship of the gospel. I just wanted to say that tomorrow at the same time on this channel, we're going to have a conversation with Brother Volodymyr Pilipchuk, who is the chair of the resolution committee for the Sobor 2021.
Oh,
Okay, so he's going to be his conversation is called Sobor 2021 Primer, resolution, decision making, and something else. I'll tell you exactly what we were going to be talking about. And so the topic would be Sobor 2021 Primer, basics on Sobor preparation, running, and decisions. So nothing controversial, please do not think that we do so. He basically will just be quoting the bylaws, policies, and procedures, and how our resolutions are made in our church and how decisions are made during the Sobor. So again, it's rather a informational presentation than it is informational presentation rather than anything else. And that's all I wanted to say for today. Let's see. Чи ви маєте ще щось добавити?
I'm always humbled to be with you, brothers. I feel good.
Слава Богу. Щастя і здоров'я вам усім.
Yeah, I'm in good company. Oh, Archie Doctor, I got my needle today.
Good.
That's why
I
I'm so
got
laid
mine
back.
February 25th, and supposed to be getting the next one in May.
Oh,
I got
all right.
mine last Saturday. I got my Pfizer last Saturday. And my next one is July 24th,
Oh,
after Sabor.
oh, you might need it then.
That's right. Окей, все таки. Добре. Скінчимо молитвою тоді, добре?
Так.
Давайте.
Отче, я скажу молитву, Отче Тарас, а ви скажете благословення, добре?
Окей.
Добре. Ім'я Отця і Сина Святого Духа, амінь. Ім'я Отця і Сина Святого Духа, амінь. Ім'я Отця і Сина Святого Духа, амінь. Богородице Діво, радуйся, благодатна Марія, Господь з тобою. Благословена ти в жонах і благословений плід утроби твоєї, бо ти породила Христа Спаса душ наших. Слава Отцю і Сину Святому Духу, нині повсякчас і на віки вічні, амінь. Господи помилуй, Господи помилуй, Господи помилуй. Отче Тарасе, благослови.
Дякуємо Господеві, що ми мали нагоду сьогодні вечір зустрічатися. We thank our Heavenly Father and our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for the grace that has been bestowed upon us this evening, the wisdom that has been shared, the love and the respect. We do this in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. В ім'я Отця і Сина і Святого Духа, в ім'я Отця і Сина і Святого Духа. Амінь. Слава Ісусу Христу!
Слава навіки.
О, навіки!
Дуже дякую всім і до завтра.